Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul, and I am a nerd, and we are here today for the August 2013 Worldox Virtual User Group meeting. Welcome. Today we are talking about email shortcuts in Worldox, and I'm going to take that topic and talk about how to create those shortcuts and just what they can do for you. Mary Jo is going to talk about group level security, which will give you a kind of a bird's eye view of how we can limit different people's or different groups of people's access to certain types of documents, certain profile groups, or certain functionality within Worldox. But before we begin, a little bit of housekeeping. If you are still looking at this, it's because you have not collapsed it. This is the GoToWebinar control panel. And this is what comes up when you sign into our webinars. So if you are still looking at it, you can use this button that looks like arrows pointing to the right to get rid of it. Clicking this button right here will cause that control panel to slide out of view. And when that happens, you will still be able to see these buttons here, but this one will turn into a button with arrows pointing to the left. And clicking it again will cause this to slide into view. Now, the reason that you would want to slide this into view is if you want to type a question, this is where you do it. You would type a question here. If it's not already expanded, you'd click the plus sign is what it would be if it wasn't expanded next to the word questions, and type a question here and click on the send button. This will bring us through to, bring your question through to Leanne, who is our humble moderator, who will interrupt Mary Jo or me at the appropriate time and ask your question on your behalf. Be sure if you have follow-up questions as we are answering to just keep typing them into this box, and don't forget after you're done asking those follow-up questions to also hit send. Leanne will continue to ask those questions on your behalf and make sure that we get it fully answered, because we do want to do just that, fully answer any questions that you might have. You might be feeling a little bolder and less shy than that, and you may instead want to click this button, which looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upward in front of it. That means raise your hand. Again, Leanne will notice that you've raised your hand, and she will interrupt us at the appropriate point, but instead of asking your question on your behalf, she will simply unmute your microphone and allow you to ask it yourself. Again, don't hesitate to interrupt if you have follow-up questions or to ask them as we're answering. And once we're all done and certain that you've gotten your question answered, we will mute you back up so you can continue eating lunch or whatever else it is that you may be doing. So without any further ado, we're going to switch things over to Mary Jo, who is going to talk to us about group level security. Mary Jo?
Okay. Well,
surprise.
I thought that I would go in second, so that really messed me up. But okay, so we're going to talk about security and how to set those and where that is. Right now, I am logged into the WD admin portion of Worldox. If you are a manager, you have rights to get into that, and you can also set it up so other people have those rights. But for now, it is going into the WD admin section of Worldox. Once you're in here, you have different toolbar menus up here that you can get into to get to different parts of Worldox on the back side. And we're going to talk today about the security, and we're going to talk about groups. There is, if I click that, I get a whole other set of selections up here that I could choose to do different security. The first thing that you can do is set up user groups. We can set, it comes already, I believe, as one that is everyone. Everybody belongs to the everyone. And then you can further designate different groups to have different rights and accesses to different parts of the software. So we have set up one for managers so that we can get all of our Worldox managers on, and then limit other people to do other things. So you can set up as many different kinds of groups as you want. You might have a staff group or a higher level staff group or an attorney group. There's all kinds of different things that you could have set up here to create groups for. Once you've created these groups, then you can go into the features section and you can assign those groups to those different features that they're allowed to do. So it just makes it easier if you've got groups. You can do it on an individual user-by-user basis. You can even click on the user button here and see which users have access to what. Right now we've only got the 3 of us as users in here, and then we can go through and just limit to each individual user or to all of them what they're allowed to see and what they're not allowed to see, whether it's a feature, a profile group. We'll talk about ethical walls in a couple sessions and get into these a little bit more detailed. But for now, these users can be set up here as well. The biggest one that I see that we use is the features. This is going to list all the different features that we can lock down and what rights all the users have, or groups if there were any assigned. So just the first few here, if they're allowed to edit the button bar, that's a pretty simple thing. Everyone's allowed. There's a little plus sign here. That means everybody is allowed to edit the button bars if they want to on their particular user profile. Are they allowed to have email defaults? Are they allowed to change those? Things like that. Address rules. And if they're not, you can block them, and you could block everybody and then add in the people that are allowed to do that, or which group can be allowed to do that feature. So you can go through each and every one of these features all the way down. There's a whole bunch of them in here that you can go section by section of Worldox and decide who or what group are allowed to do these features. So several different things to go through and to check on through here. And I'm not going to go through every one of them, but it starts with the add edit information, goes down into archiving, auditing, checking out, checking in, closing, displaying, editing. All of these different features can be individually assigned to different groups or users. You can also do this at a profile group level. There are different profiles. It lists them all over here. And then you can limit who has access to those profiles. This is another big area because you may have profile groups set up over here for your accounting or your back office or any number of things that are private or personal for the firm. So managers only have access, things like that. So this is where you could set that up, that maybe everybody's allowed into the client files, but only certain people have access to the office or the forms or whatever that would be. So that's a good place to limit there. There are ethical walls. Like I said, we will be talking about this in more depth, but you can even get further access for security purposes for folders, files, clients. You can really get specific on what rights these people have to certain areas. So you can get it down to the matter level. And then there's the path and folders, so you can even go back down even further to that, and you can also limit those areas as well.
So basically, we're using this to set up what everyone gets access to, because a lot of times we'll go into a firm and they'll say, oh, we want everybody to be able to do this and this and this and this, and we don't want anybody to be able to do this, 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 or this. So we use the everyone group to do that, but then on a more minute level, we can say, well, but Mary Lou can do this, and John can do this, or the attorneys are allowed to do this, or more appropriately, the attorneys are not allowed to do this, and the staff is allowed to do that. So it kind of takes 2 levels. There's what everyone can and cannot do, but then on a more personal level or a more type of group level, what the attorneys can and cannot do, what the staff can and cannot do, what the partners can and cannot do. That's the way we see this being used. And as Mary Jo said, we're going to go into more detail on ethical walls in 2 months and into file level security, just taking a certain file and applying security to it. We're going to talk about that next month. Very good. Now I'm going to switch gears here, and I'm going to close up the administrative panel. And because I need to get out of here and minimize there and close this up, and I'm going to go into my mail program. Now, the other part that we're talking about today is these shortcuts. Maybe you've seen them, maybe you haven't. Maybe you work with them already, maybe you don't. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of start from scratch. I'm going to create a profile, and when I do that, I'm then going to show you how they work. I've got a few set up here under Worldox as a starting point for, I use them for demoing, but I'm actually going to go and create one right now. So I'm going to send an email, brand new email to, and I'm going to make up an email address. And so we're going to say it's Paul Purdue Test 104 at gmail.com. And we're just going to send a test email. Now, these profiles, or these shortcuts, they're called quick access profiles within Outlook, are created when you first send an email to somebody, usually, and go to profile that. So we're going to send a brand new email to this fake person, Paul Purdue, at this fake email address. And when we do that, Worldox is going to pop up and say, do you want to profile that? And I'm going to say, I want to move this message, and I'm going to store it in the client files under Purdue Law Offices, matter 0, doc type email. It's me as the author and me as the typist. And keep in mind, Worldox is pretty flexible. You may have a different set of fields here in your profile group. This is kind of the standard out-of-the-box client matter profile group. When we do that, usually, I forgot that I have this turned off on my system, usually it will then pop up and say, do you want to create a quick profile? So I'm going to pretend like I knew this was going to happen, but I really didn't, for those who want to be in the know. Just so I could show you that this is where it would happen. It would pop up and say, do you want to create a quick profile? And what it's asking you is, do you want to automatically create something under here that represents an email going to paul.purdue.test104@gmail.com so that you can drag other email for that particular matter, or doesn't have to be to that person, for instance, but could be. But you can drag other email for that matter or into that profile group or under those circumstances and not have to reprofile the document like we just did. Now you can also simply go here, click on Worldox, click on Quick Profiles, and we're going to create a new one. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to create it. I'm going to make it Purdue Law by searching over here for Purdue. I'm going to make it matter 00. I'm going to make it email. I'm going to leave this with *WD user. That means it'll put in whoever it is for. I could also simply put in Paul Purdue because these quick profiles live in my Outlook, and so these will most often be emails that I want dragged in with the P. Purdue as the author typist. Doesn't matter whether you leave it at *WD user or put in your own. I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to call it Purdue Law. Make sure I don't already have that because that would confuse things. Purdue Law. And there it is, right there. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's go back to my sent items, or my inbox perhaps, because I noticed I got a email here that shows this as having bounced. I can now take this. Normally, I would have to take this and individually profile it over to Worldox. I'd click on Copy to Worldox. I'd click on Move to Worldox. And when I did, it would want me to fill in that information again. And I'd have to reprofile it. This is the first email I profiled today, so we're going to give it a second. It takes about 20 seconds to come up. At least the first email I profiled with this button. And I'd have to go through all that again. But if instead I drag this over here and let go, bam, I have profiled that, and I can just click that button and it's profiled as Purdue Law. The other side of the coin is that when I then click on this, within Outlook, I am looking at all the Worldox documents for Purdue Law, not just emails, but Word documents and PDFs and Excel spreadsheets. They're all here. So there's a couple things I can do with this. First off, I could say that this email plus this email plus this email plus this email all have to do with this matter. I can block them all or mark them all, and drag them all at once over here and let go. And when I do, I won't have to fill out a profile screen. I will be taking these 4 emails and instantly profiling with the Purdue Law matter. So what you end up with is attorneys, most typically, paralegals, sometimes legal assistants, who are constantly profiling to the same matter. And with attorneys, it's a revolving list. You've got your 10 matters that are very hot right now, and some of them will be hot for a couple of weeks. Some of them are going to be settled within a couple of days. And if you were to come look at that same attorney's list of Worldox quick profiles in their Outlook folder, a month from now, it probably would be totally different. Because as matters are hot, they show up here, and the attorneys can drag groups of emails all at once into that profile group, quick shortcut right here, and profile to whatever is appropriate. And they can then click on that quick profile, and it will take them to that particular Worldox screen for that particular matter. We find a lot of attorneys that are using these shortcuts over here don't even go into Worldox down here very often, because they just kind of live in Outlook and they can navigate among their dozen or 2 dozen top hot matters of the day and be able to operate within Worldox, be able to profile things within Outlook to Worldox. And keep in mind, once I take things from my inbox or my sent items or deleted items, wherever, law folder in Outlook, they are now in Worldox. So a firm that has just gotten Worldox, they may have attorneys that in the past had these folders, not under a Worldox folder, but they just created their own folders, and they would drag emails there. And this is kind of the same thing, but the difference is when you did this before you had Worldox, these emails that you dragged to these folders that you created only lived in your Outlook and nobody else could see them. It's the same concept, but it allows you to create those quick folders that push these emails through to Worldox so that the instant you profile them, anybody can see them. So there are 2 sides to it. Dragging emails, whether it's a continuous group of 4 emails or emails that aren't right next to each other. And for those who don't know, if I click here and then shift-click here, I'm blocking the whole group of emails. But if I click here and then control-click here and here, I'm picking specific emails without blocking the ones in between. Drag them over here and release. That's the one way to use these, and the other way is to click on it and see what is in Worldox for that particular client. Now, to summarize again how you do that, many of you probably, and this is one of those things that we turned off in our system using the group security that Mary Jo just demonstrated. We told it we don't want it to ask us if we want to create quick profiles, because frankly we don't use these very much. My emails are profiled as I do them, and it happens pretty much automatically. But lawyers that have a lot of emails going back and forth all day tend to really, really like this way of doing it. So you can send an email, and the minute you send it and profile it, it can then ask you, do you want to create a quick profile for that? You can say yes. It'll ask you for a name, and every other email that you drag there will be profiled the same way. And that, if you don't have turned on, can be turned on through group security, which means that if certain people want it, they can have it, and if certain people don't want it, they don't have to have it. And then the other thing is, the other way to create them is to click here, say Quick Profiles, go to New, and simply fill out a profile screen the way you would want it to be. In my example, I did, searched for Purdue here, chose Purdue Law, put in the matter number, put in the doc type, put in me as the user, author, and typist, saved it, and gave it a name. So those are the 2 ways to create them, and the 2 uses are dragging emails to them or just clicking on them and showing them within the system. Any questions, Leanne?
No questions, Paul.
Awesome. Now, next month, we will be talking in our Worldox virtual user group meeting, which, by the way, is always the 2nd Tuesday of the month. Next month, we'll be talking about file security. Today, Mary Jo talked about group security and limiting access on a group or user basis to certain features or functions or profile groups. Next month, we'll talk about doing that just on the file level. Instead of saying this person is the only person that has access to this profile group, we can instead say this person is the only person that has access to this one document. And then the other thing we'll be talking about next month is a drill-down search methodology. You are able in Worldox to search for a word like Purdue and find thousands of documents and then search within that group for something more narrow and then within that group for something more narrow. What did I say? Second Tuesday? I'm being handed a note here that says to clarify that it is the second Monday of the month that we have our Worldox virtual user group meeting. Leanne thinks that I may have inadvertently said the second Tuesday. So again, topics next month, file level security and drill down searching, the ability to search within results and then search again within those results and then search again with those results until you get to specifically what you want without having to start your search over again each time. Everybody have a good afternoon, and we'll see you next month. Thanks much. Bye-bye.